Well, good afternoon to all racing fans and everyone out there. As you know, we're going to be chatting to Steve. I just better send him a message because I haven't sent him a message yet. So while I'm doing that, I can chat to all of you who are out there and see what does he say. Missed voice call. Okay, so we've got a missed voice call. Good later, phone 3. Okay, perfect. Steve's got the message. So we're all set, ready to go. And just to give you a bit of update of what's going on, well, you've seen all the news. There's a lot going on at the moment in South Africa. We'll be chatting to Steve about obviously the NHA and what has happened with the jockeys. In my opinion, it is an absolute mess and a nightmare. And we can blame no one but V. Woodley for the mess that we've got in as far as jockeys can come down where they can't ride. My feeling, you should be able to have your stable jockey riding for you, especially if the rules allow it. And the rules do allow it. It's only the NHA rules that don't allow it, which is quite disappointing. Because you've got big races, Group 1s, Sean Terry and Mike the Cock both said, and they both had chats on Sporting Post, Turf Talk. It was very interesting to see that they really wanted their riders to be able to come. And I know that we wanted to come and ride in KwaZulu-Natal. We are proud to travel to come and ride in KwaZulu-Natal. We're not allowed because of the rules. The rules that basically, I think V. Woodley made up himself along the way. Let me have a look and see what I got here. But we'll talk to Steve about it. He'll know more about it. Vodacom Durban July. Well, Bulgarian threw his hat right in the picture, and we'll get a very good idea of what happens tomorrow and Sunday with the two big race meetings that are coming up. I know Turfentine's going to be an amazing meeting, and then followed by Greybull on Sunday. So there should be some fun there. Hawam, it will be interesting to see how he goes. I can't see him getting beaten. Let's have a quick look at the card and see. I thought there were a couple that looked like there were standouts there on the day. The third race is Grade 2 Fillies Nursery. Obviously, that's going to be quite interesting to see how they come out of that. But Springs of Carmel's very fast and gets sprayed him. Won his last two. Then the fourth race will be interesting to see Mike de Kock's two horses run. The two juveniles, and there doesn't look much between them. Kelly has taken the ride on the Mount Pleasant, the Vancouver colt, and that's leaving Lyle Hewitson on the Star Spangled Banner. That will be interesting. Race 5, Queen Supreme. Although coming back in trip, you can't really go against her, I wouldn't have thought. Race 6, Mr. Flood. Looks like he's good enough to beat this lot, certainly at level weights. I think that he should give them a proper hiding. Awam, level weight, should be able to beat this lot. Tierra del Fuego ran a race last time out. That's quite interesting to see because he's 3 lengths off Awam and he meets in the same weights. And who knows how much improvement there is in Tierra del Fuego. Mighty High, I like that one for the Jans of Van Vuren in the 8th race. Looks like a bunch of real good ones tomorrow. So we'll be doing some interest in studying on that. I haven't studied Durban at all. But let me just have a look at these races because we've got the Tibushina, the Gatecrasher, and the Devon Stakes. Those are the two juvenile races. The Tibushina, oh, that's going to be a nice race. You've got some really good fillies in there. The Spirit of the Groove, I'm hoping that wins for my friend Mark Young and his team. The Gold Challenge, well, you got to it again. Clouds Unfold is the top filly. Cirillo, Vardy, when they pick up their feet against each other, that's great. Hello, Nikki. Nice to have you with us. And Frank, nice to have you. Are you still in Saudi Arabia, Frank? I don't know how you're surviving there. It must be bloody hot. Lady of Steel, she gets a chance to go one better and make it 6 from 6. Fade Herb rides her. Interesting about the jockey thing, Bernard's riding in Durban tomorrow. Where's he been? So if he's able to get to Durban, that would be quite interesting and would be well worth answering. I did find then occasion to try and get some feedback. But V. Moodley's working from home apparently, and it seems like a number of them are working from home. We'll talk about that later. Claverflay sale online. Well, Gavel House do a fantastic job, and you've got to take your hats off to them, Gary Moore and the team. I think Gary's still involved. We had them a bit of time. Frank, Frank, sorry for you. Can you get a beer or two, Frank, or are you on the wagon? Paresh, nice to have you on board. Claverflay sale, 8.3 million. A lot of they've got some very, very staunch supporters there. Singapore and France are opening on the 11th of the 7th. Singapore, after 80 days quarantine, they're back to racing on the 11th of the 7th. And France are opening with 5,000 people per race meeting, which is fantastic, fantastic news. Right, so what else have we got here? Hollywood Bets have got the competition going and leading the trainer competition. Glenn Cotson and Dennis Dreyer. Well, Glenn's got a tremendous team here, and John Butler's doing a great job for him. Dennis Dreyer, well, he's back. The last competition was run when he was in Cape Town, so I look for big improvement from him. DeMello, Marcus, and Dylan are the three top jockeys, and then Gates is the top apprentice as far as the apprentice board is concerned. Let's see. Alexandra, Grade 1 winner in America, in Belmont. She won the Grade 1 Jaipur. Now, that's fantastic for Barry Owen and his team. Where have all the books gone? We're painting this room next week, so we took all the books out, and we're giving a lot of them away. Would anyone like to come collect some books? We've got lots and lots of books we're giving away. Then we go back to Alexandra. She's out of Alexandra Rose. She bred by Team Valor, and she was purchased by Glenn Cotson. Funny enough, we're talking about Glenn on the trainers log. He's leading the trainers log. He purchased her, and she was a very good mare. She won a Group 3, and she in America, and she won a Group 2 in South Africa. Alexandra Rose. She's out of Alexander B. I mean, it's a fantastic family. It's an English family, very, very good English family indeed. And Fastfontein bred, she's very, very good. And she's trained by Neil Drysdale. He left her in Belmont, most of his strings down at Gulfstream, and he certainly hasn't taken her back to California. I'm pretty casual today because I've just had a shower. Hello, Samesh, how are you? Anyone got any questions out there? Does anyone want to type in anything? Because there's lots of good racing coming, and we'll get Steve on any moment now, but we've got minutes. I see that International Racing Club, Joe D'Amato and his team, big advert in the Sporting Post, and certainly they had a horse that won first time out, so that's very nice for them. Excellent to see them doing well, and it couldn't have been easy having a lot of horses during lockdown. The biggest problem for us is that we're paying in rands. For Joe, well, he's paying in pounds. He doesn't care. It's a bit of ticky change, you know. So he's cruising along, not doing too badly at all. Good day at the Vaal yesterday. Pretty close. And as I thought, it was quite a good card. I think tomorrow's card's going to be a very good card. I hear there's Pick Six carryovers tomorrow and Sunday, which are both well worth taking a note of. I look forward to seeing what they do as far as the Pick Six is concerned. What other news is there? I wrote something down here, but I don't have any idea what I wrote. I have no idea what I wrote down there. Anyway, what can you say? If I have no idea what I wrote down, then I can't read it out to you. What I can say is that we'll chat to Steve about a few of the rules that Mr. Moodley made for the lockdown, which really impacted on us. One of the rules is no traveling between provinces, and I understand that, but the point is that if the stipendiary stewards can travel and the jockey club members can travel, why shouldn't jockeys travel? They actually probably better washed down and screened and everything than anyone else. I know they've all had screening tests. They're all negative at this stage from what we've heard. Steve with us. Nice to have him on the line. Steve, good afternoon.
How are you, James?
I'm extremely well, thank you. Let me put you down there so that we can hear exactly what you've got to say. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks, James. It's been an interesting week. I've had quite a bit of feedback from our show, and I'm going to address one or two things during the course of the show. But yeah, let's get on with it, and let's chat about our beloved NHA.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that the big news this week, obviously, we went through figures and that last week, and I don't think there's much more we can say except 50 million. As we said last week, is a huge amount of money to spend on the race day, because basically that's what the race day costs in South Africa, 50 million a year.
James, if we could just end there was one very important part of the expenses that we didn't have time to touch on last time that I'd just like to address now, and I think it'll lead into a lot of the things that we're going to discuss later. And that is the legal costs at the NHA. Now, I don't know how many of the listeners are aware, but the NHA, in my opinion, are much like a closed club. And the reason it's a closed club is because you have to be a member to race horses. So it is definitely closed. But if you compare that with other closed clubs like the Rotarians, I would say, and I say closed club, maybe, it's not an accurate description, but an exclusivity. It's not open for everyone. I mean, you've basically got to own a racehorse to get colours, and obviously. But, I've been a Rotarian for almost 25 years now. And we're very similar in terms of you've got to adhere to rules and all those type of things. And the one thing that I do want to say is, last year, I'm talking 2019, the NHA spent a grand total of 2,945,450 rand on legal costs.
I got 1,909,000.
No, you. Okay, so James, they're very cute with their numbers there.
Okay.
Because if you have a look, if you add that 1,900,000 and whatever to the fines collected,
yeah,
the fines offset the cost. If you understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
So without the fines, they spent 2,945,000, and we'll come back to the fines in a second because that's a very interesting topic all in itself. But for the NHA to spend 245,000 rand a month on average, James, on legal fees, you've got to ask yourself the question: just how much diplomacy is there? What has happened to statesmanship at the NHA? And I come back to where I'm saying they're a closed club, right? And I mentioned the Rotarians. Now, believe it or not, some very naughty buggers in Rotary. And every now and again, we might have a couple of pots too many and cause a bit of nonsense or whatever. And believe you me, there are disciplinary steps that could be taken, but without any doubt, every single time there's a problem, the problem is addressed and it's discussed, and there's a whole basically an opening up of what the actual issue is, what rules were broken, if any, why it is important to address it, and what the appropriate fine is. Now, I think that is definitely something that any club, particularly a club that needs as many members as what they can get, they should really adopt this type of attitude. Now, I'm told, it was before my time, but I'm told that in the days of the Jock Sprouls of the world and those type of guys, you were often called in for a cup of coffee to discuss whatever the problem was. But I can tell you that I've had the misfortune of wasting a bit of time and money in the NHA inquiry room a few times.
Yeah.
And without exception, every single time, the only notification was the email saying, you've been charged. There's never been a phone call to say, listen, we've seen you saying this and this. What is the issue? Can you come and discuss it with us? It's been straight for the jugular. And to me, particularly an organization that this year is not going to have the funding that it needs, they need to start adapting. And someone like V. Moodley needs to take a long, hard look at his organization and start including people in it, not being an exclusive an excluding type of organization. That is the one thing that I wanted to discuss.
Well, let's talk about that first, because my take, and a few things come out on this. My take is that they take quite exception if you appeal and the appeal is turned is upheld. Their appeal is upheld because they find you guilty in the first place, and then you appeal against the finding of guilt and it's upheld, and then you have no other course to go but to go to court. Now, remember that the money they've spent in the inquiry and the appeal is money that our horses have earned, because I'm an owner and was a trainer, okay? Our horses earned that money for them to be able to run their business. They then use our money to go and fight us in court, okay? And if we win in court, they use our money to pay our costs, and we normally win in court, okay? And who sits the jury all the way along is none other than all their senior executives or people that sit on their board. And on top of that, which is this is the worst indictment of them, their appeal board is made up of a whole lot of their people that are on their board as well. So why should the appeal board, surely, if you want to have an appeal board that is completely impartial, you have an appeal board made up of 3 or 4 guys outside, retired judges who have nothing whatsoever to do with it, and they listen to the appeal. How can you have an appeal board as a chairman? He's been a chairman forever and ever and ever, and he sits on a board as well. It makes, they lost that case with me in court only on that. I never even got to show that the caffeine that they found in the horse was actually came in after the horse was found positive because of the other samples which showed that it hadn't passed through the horse's system, the byproduct.
Yeah. So
here we've got a couple of people that are not very happy about it. But let's get back to the 2.9 million and how it's split up, because the fines, I was told, and we always believed the fines went to the Trainers and Jockeys Benevolent Fund. So let's get into that.
Okay, James. So yeah, I have to mention my good friend Brett Mazel, and I think he deserves so much credit for a lot of the exposing and a lot of the changes of the rules that have taken place. There have been so many things that he's pointed out over the years that the Jockey Club have been forced to change because he's been correct in what he's done. And, obviously he's never been acknowledged. I mean, the man has done so much for racing, in my opinion, and he's the biggest polecat that there can be. And to me, it's a disgrace. But Brett picked up the fact that the Trainers and Riders Benevolent Fund, the numbers going into it were decreasing. This was, I speak under correction, James, about 2014, 2013, around that stage, and brought this up and discussed this at the relevant AGM. And we were told at that AGM that it had been decided that all monies that were accrued by people paying fines were traditionally paid 100% into this fund, which makes sense because, at the end of the day, you don't want the situation like you have now where the NHA is basically your prosecutor, it's the judge, the jury, the executioner of a whole lot. It made sense that the money that they earned went to a good cause. But at this AGM, we were told that that only 33% of the money would, from then on, be paid into the Benevolent Fund, and that number decreased to, I think it was 20% a couple of years later, and we're now in the position that absolutely no money goes into anything but the NHA.
But that fund's been depleted to zero.
Yes, because there's none of the money that traditionally came in from the paying of fines, James. None of that money is going into that fund anymore.
Surely,
that money is 100% being used to offset legal costs now.
okay, but I must stop you there, Steve. Surely you have to take a change like that to an AGM. Who would have made a change without it going to the AGM? And if they did make a change like that, they should be prosecuted.
Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, James, and I'm pretty sure of my facts, yeah. To the best of my knowledge, when Mizelle raised this, when Brett raised this at the relevant AGM, and I'll get the information if anyone needs it. I might even just post it under the comments later what year it was. There was a bit of a scurrying around, and it was like, "Oh, we're sure that we've done this," and Brett said, "No, you hadn't." And apparently, what had happened was that it had been decided. It had been decided to change it. I think at a board meeting. But it had never been ratified before.
If that's the case, Steve, surely the Trainers and Jockeys Benevolent Fund have a case against the Jockey Club to repay all that money.
James, you'd have to speak to someone like Orman Ferraris, who has been very deeply involved with this, and I know he was very, very unhappy about this. I mean, if you think about it, in times like these, those funds probably are most needed now. There are a lot of people on hard times, I mean, and stuff like that. But I cannot speak about those funds because I've never really been involved. But I'm 100% sure that this was addressed at that AGM that I'm talking about, and there was this problem.
I'm horrified. I can tell you why I'm horrified, because back in the 80s, I became chairman of the Trainers Association. And we ended up going national, but we mainly stayed as the Transvaal Trainers Association. And we put these things in place with them. These were the things that were put in place. We also had a medical aid scheme for the trainers, which eventually came to a halt when I ended up leaving Rykiesfontein, because there were a couple of people that didn't like it, and the rich paid for the poor, as it worked out, because the guys that earned the most money put the most money in. And we were happy with that. We believed that I was one of the top trainers in those years, and I was very happy to pay for the guy who was battling. The one person that was really interesting about this was Frank Gagliotti, because when we put this together in about the early 80s, he turned around and came to a meeting with Sandy Christie and the Turvening guys, and he said, "I don't need medical aid. I've got Josh Joubert, and I've got all these good..." Who was the first guy, one of the first guys to ask us to help him when he fell on hard times? Frank Gagliotti, So I want to mention that because this is what happens in these things.
James, just interesting. I've got some figures here, and it just illustrates. I'm almost certain that it was 2013, the AGM of 2013, that Brett Mizelle raised this. In that year, 536,000 rand was the amount of fines that were paid in. And of that amount, 178,000, that's a straight 33%, went into the fund. Now, if you compare that, at R500,000, 178,000 went into the fund. I mean, last year there was 1,016,000 in fines, and nothing went into the fund.
Hello, Josh from Texas. We've got a guy from Texas here, Kerry Murphy.
Yes.
Josh, can you believe it? Sorry, Steve.
That's how you get steers and queers in Texas, James.
Yeah, that's it. Checking. Yeah. Well, Josh has arrived. He's a steer. Hello, Josh. So how do we address this going forward? This is a problem. It's just absolutely inadequate as far as the industry is concerned to have these type of anomalies crop up by supposedly our body that is meant to look after us and the racing.
James, if you want to talk about anomalies, probably the biggest surprise I ever got was it was the 2015 AGM. Was when the NHA admitted that Phumelela did their financials. Now, I don't know. You know, you ask how do you address these things. To be quite blunt, James, the NHA are not the easiest body to engage with. They don't want to engage, to be quite frank. I don't believe that they want change. I don't believe they definitely don't want people to know their business, even though you're members. On many occasions, I mean, they have issues that, in particular, Brett Mizell has addressed, and the NHA have just ignored him. And important things, you know, when you get a situation where your chief executive of the NHA basically goes back to someone with a legitimate concern and says duly noted, and that is the entire answer, then you know they clearly don't want to engage with members. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, to be frank, James, you know, I often think to myself, you know, do we need the NHA? Sure, we need an authority to police and control racing, but should it be the NHA? I'm not so sure.
Okay, well, let's break down the NHA now and discuss how they're made up. They have a board of directors, okay, who are made up of racing people. They
hold on a minute, James. They're not all racing people.
They're lawyers or racing people.
Yeah, and that is just. But let me ask this question, James. When last did we get a statement that came out of the NHA board?
On what?
I mean, on anything.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are as secretive as the trust. You just never hear from them. I mean, they're there and they supposedly have their meetings and all the rest. But what direction does the NHA board give V. Moodley? I want to know that. Because I don't think there's much. I think most of them are there. And it's clearly an honor for some people, and it should be an honor, in my opinion. But what do these guys do? What input do board members give the NHA? I'd love to know that. I really would.
Well, you would hope that the NHA board would have helped V. Moodley put together all the COVID-19 rules. Okay, now let's just digress a little and chat about these COVID-19 rules, because I think they've got to be brought up. De Kock and Terry were incensed that they couldn't get their jockeys down to ride on Sunday at Greyville. And I would be too. I think that they've got a very valid point. Were these rules made up with any eyes on where the ball was, or were they just made up out of the blue by V. Moodley? Or did the NHA board have something to do with them? Because I can't believe the board of people that clever, or supposedly that clever, could have allowed this to happen.
James, that's a good question, and one that I really can't answer. But the one thing I would like to say, and I'm going to go back to the statementship again. Why could a telephone not be picked up? Why could discussions not be held? Why could things not be sorted out before we get all this finger pointing and all the rest? And I mean, do me a favor. For 3 days, you're not gonna allow a jockey to ride on today, and then he can't ride for the rest of the month. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, James. And you know, let's be frank. I think racing, and in particular the tote, needs as much turnover as what it can get.
Correct.
I mean, when you get the big name jocks riding horses, there's no doubt that people are more confident in having a bet. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win, but you know, if you have one of the top 5 jockeys riding a horse, obviously you're going to feel a lot more comfortable than and with no disrespect to any of them, a run-of-the-mill jock, a local run-of-the-mill jock, if you know what I'm saying. Particularly, and where I do have a lot of sympathy for these raiders, and this is not provincialism. I think it's just when you have a situation where you have a jock who's been riding the horse, and he's, more importantly, okay, we'll leave Strike out of this, but more importantly, been working the horse, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. It really doesn't. I really believe that with proper negotiation, with proper discussion and open and an attitude of trying to sort out a problem, this could really have been averted.
Well, this is the problem that we have. And sorry, our man from Texas, Josh, We're talking about something completely different. This is all about South Africa, and we've got a special guest chatting about our regulatory body in charge of horse racing. I don't know if you know anything about horse racing, but let's now try and analyze how we got to the situation, because that wasn't the only rule that was made, in my opinion, that has had a negative impact on racing. The other rule that I cannot believe they made was 12 runners per race. What in God's name gave them the idea that 12 runners would be better than 14, 16, or 20 runners? It just makes no sense. You've got a racetrack, you've got to race down a racetrack. If you can get 20 horses on it, like a Turpentine Straight or whatever, you should be running as many horses as possible. All the owners have bled over 2 months of no racing. The trainers have bled and the jockeys have bled. Now give them the best chance to run races. They've got 50, 60 acceptances in races. I mean, for next Wednesday at the Vaal, there was 30 acceptances in 3 races. So
yeah,
you're not giving the. So who made that rule? Who thought that through? Surely if you're a board of directors that know something about racing, and there are some people that really know something about racing, they turn around and they say, hang on, why would we make it restrict ourselves to 12 horses when we're actually in Group 1s and Group 2s we're allowed to run more than 12 horses? What is the benefit of running 12 horses per race? You're giving less people a chance to earn. It makes no sense.
And James, how can it be that you can have 18 runners in the July if these rules are all in place?
Well, that's the whole point. Someone put these rules together, and V. Moodley's in charge, so he's got it. The buck stops with him. How does he do it? Okay, V, you answer this for me, because I can't get hold of you. Why is it 12 runners per race? And if you've got a good reason, I'll listen to it. Why is the Trainers and Jockeys Benevolent Fund being disbanded when no one gave you permission to do it? Okay. And what happens with all your fines that are meant to be coming to this Trainers and Jockeys Benevolent Fund? There are a number of other things that we should be asking V. Moodley as well.
James, I think I think while we have this chance, someone that I speak to quite often is a racing guy, and I'm not going to name names, not because. Just not to embarrass the guy.
No, you don't have to name names. You know what? It's not the Sporting Post where you now go put your name.
Yeah. He was, he was very unhappy with me saying that I didn't believe that V. Moodley should run NHA. And I'd just like to clarify something. V's a great guy. I've got a lot of time for V. The reason I think that V. Moodley shouldn't be running the NHA, quite simply, is not because he's not capable of it. He is capable of it. But unfortunately, V is tainted by the fact that he was on the Phumelela board. And in my opinion, it just doesn't make sense for someone with his background to run an authority and supposedly be neutral about it. And that is the only reason why I believe V. Moodley shouldn't be on the NHA in any capacity. And having said that, I don't believe anyone with a Phumelela or any racing operating background should be on any regulatory body, because you cannot be anything but affected by your history, your background, all those type of things. So
well,
just to clear that, James. Now I'm going to answer your question. I think V a lot of the time is the guy that's in the sights because of his position. And we mentioned, or I mentioned it, I really don't believe the NHA board is giving the direction that they should be giving. And I think those guys have got a lot to answer for as well. Because besides the Robin Brusses of the world, the Ashley Parkers of the world, which are both good racing guys, I mean, come on, man. They're all a bunch of suits. They're all lawyers, and you never know about them. I mean,
I think you've got to include Susan Kalmanson. She's Susan Rowlett. She's probably one of the most steeped in racing people ever. But the thing is she effective as a chairman of a board where it seems to be controlled by the same old team. This is what I have against the NHA. Every seems to be run by lawyers. Okay. Now, in KwaZulu-Natal, we have another group of people. In the NHA, you have the lawyers. And it's ridiculous how these guys actually control the whole thing.
Yeah. The verdict's out in terms of Ms. Kalmanson. I think she's a very capable person, James. But, to be fair, has she got a figurehead position, or has she got a position where she can really make changes? And I think that is the question.
Well, okay. This gets back to, Steve, your first question that you asked me. Does the NHA board lead V. Moodley and the employees of the board, which is Arnold Hyde and all the rest of them, with a path to follow, or do you end up having the executives or the paid employees running the whole show, and the board just sort of meets for a jolly once a month and chats to each other and keeps up with the good old boy club, and that's it? Because it doesn't look to me like this authority is run by anyone. I know when Ken Truter was there was all this thing with the ARCSA, the Asian Racing Conference. Did that end up a success?
James, listen, I suppose it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Because to me, you and once again we hear the whispers, but this cost something like 20 million rand. And from what I'm led to believe, the major sponsors of these were the operators. I understand that Phumelela, the international side of things, coughed up 10 bar. Gold Circle had a bit of money. I'm not too sure about Kenilworth. But you've got to ask yourself the question. At that time, Phumelela was already in dire straits. Racing was in trouble. I mean, before COVID came, we were in trouble. There's no doubt about it. Why did we host this Asian Racing Conference? And who benefited from it, James?
Well, I
don't believe our racing. You know that I can tell you that the sole contribution in terms of presentations that South Africa delivered, I'm talking outside of the welcoming and all that type of thing. I'm talking about actual presentations, was on the welfare of racehorses after racing. And that was given, I think, by our friend Mr. Hard and Miss Kiaya Hazel. I don't know. I think I pronounced that incorrectly.
Yeah.
Now that in itself is a joke, James. We can't even keep track of the second career forms that are supposed to be filled when a thoroughbred leaves a training centre. And now we're giving talks about the welfare of horses and second careers and all the rest. It's just a farce. I mean, it's an absolute farce.
Okay, so
why did we not just send a delegation to wherever it would have been held if it wasn't us? It would have been at an absolute fraction of the cost. And really, I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand some of these decisions.
Okay, well, the one thing that really annoyed me was when Charles Fall told me that he could not get a stall at the Asian Racing Conference without paying the $7,000 or whatever it was that they wanted him to pay. Now, love or hate Charles Fall at the end of the day, Charles Fall has got some very good ideas. He's an extremely bright boy. He was born and bred into this industry, and he has put his heart and soul into racing forever. And he's got a wonderful, wonderful product. Action Online Racing, Form, with Jahan Malherbe and the team, they do something that should have been embraced years ago by racing, and we should be using them. He couldn't get a stall there. Now, surely it's a benefit to our product, our racing product, if you turn around and say, this guy deserves to get a stall there. I was absolutely horrified that he never got it, and that Ken Truter said to him, you pay your $7,000 and we'll give you a stall. Here's a man that's got every credential to be given a stall at a conference that we're hosting so that he can show his wares. I don't know if you agree with me.
James, listen, I mean, clearly there are costs and there has to be ways of trying to recoup some of those costs. But, the first thing, everything was charged in US dollars. And that in itself gives a very clear message. It's almost like locals weren't really welcome. And you talk about Charles Fall. I know for a fact that the vast majority of the racing press were not invited to this conference.
Yeah, well, I was going to get on to that.
Yeah, and I mean, there are more questions than answers, James. What was the aim of this conference? What did we want to achieve as a racing jurisdiction by hosting it? Surely it's not to say that we got the biggest chests in the business or we got the greatest city in the world or stuff like that. Surely there should have been some type of goal and a racing goal in trying to host this, particularly at the type of money that was spent. And to me, let's be frank, what did we achieve by hosting the Asian Racing Conference, James? Have you seen any benefits?
No, not at all. That's why I asked about it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, James, it might be a bit harsh, but it seems like certain individuals' egos were more important than actual cold, hard facts and planning in terms of whether this was worthwhile or not.
Okay, so I think that the majority of us would like to have that question answered. That's the answer to the question, but we're not going to get it. Let's go back
just as an aside, Ken Tritter and Lyndon Barnes ran up almost R1 million in expenses in what they called bidding for the Asian Racing Conference. They went off to Dubai and all these type of places. So I wonder what type of class they flew. I wonder what star restaurant, hotels they stayed in. All these little things, James. Just, in an organization that is literally bankrupt.
You don't have to ask about Ken. Ken's got a very, very vibrant Facebook site that or WhatsApp, and he's on there the whole time showing pictures of himself. I don't know whether he's business or whether he's pleasure. I like Ken. I think Ken's a great guy for racing. But at the end of the day, these questions have got to be answered to know whether we're in the right, because the play is about the NHA. The NHA is your body that controls racing. They have a board that's supposedly meant to give direction to their management and their staff. Does it happen? Let's go back to the discussion about the laboratory. After last week's discussion, I got the most irate voice message from David Ferraris, who trains, and I said to him, I'm going to mention it, trains in Hong Kong. He purchased a horse during Corona, during the lockdown. And the NHA laboratory was closed. Now, surely, if you've got a laboratory with all that accreditation and all those stars and how bloody good they tell us it all is, okay, it should have been open and they should have been doing tests, whether it's COVID tests or flu tests or any other tests or whatever tests they could be doing, and they should have been able to do David Ferraris's horse. They messed him up. It sent him back 6 weeks. It makes no sense. So these guys are pulling their salary and just sitting at home.
Yeah, listen, James, I actually heard that voice now, and I can't comment on why they were closed. I think the initial shutdown, everyone was in a bit of a state of shock, and
we all closed.
Come on. Surely, something could have been done, And even if it was not on a full-time basis, surely they could have come in certain times and done the absolutely minimum necessary to get these type of things out of the way.
Well, I have a client who was registered as essential service. They do drug testing on all the pills and things that are sold in South Africa. And they got the essential service sorted out. They ran their business as normal the whole way through lockdown. Okay, yeah. Surely the NHA should have, the first thing they should have said is, what are we? Well, we've got to be an essential service, even though racing's not running. We have a laboratory. we can make use of this laboratory that is supposedly so good. It's got all the accreditations and the bells and whistles. They tell us how fantastic they are. We can do COVID testing. That's a great opportunity for us to make some money. Isn't this? This is what really annoys me about the NHA, Steve, and it just seems to be one-way traffic. The price of getting your colors renewed, getting your authorities to act, getting your licenses redone have just gone through the roof. Why have they gone through the roof? Because they cannot make a living. Their expenses are too high. And why? They get no income from a laboratory that should be giving them a tremendous income, I would have thought.
Yeah. James, you touch on a very interesting subject there, the costs of things and all the rest. I had colors for over 20 years. And when I took my colors out, I remember there were I'm talking individual color holders, there were about 12,000 individual color holders.
Yeah. In those days.
Today they're less than 2,000.
Yeah.
At the end of last year, there were 1,970 from the looks of things. And I can only think that those numbers are going to take quite a hit after what we're going through now, the reduction in stakes and, the economic environment that we're in. But having said, it looks like the NHA are trying to make up for the lack of numbers by hiking the fees. I mean, I had a quick look, James. It's crazy. If I wanted to get a set of colors now, I mean, not that I'd be that stupid, but if I wanted to go and sort of license myself as an owner, they charge me 4,120 Rand just to become an owner, and then 1,580 Rand to renew my privilege. Now I've got to ask, what do you get for that money? I mean, and when you go it gets worse. I buy myself a horse, I give it to a trainer, and I've got to pay another 1,000 Rand, it's 860 Rand, for an authority to act.
And then you got to register the horse in your name?
Yeah, and that's another 900 Rand or whatever it is. And I'm just why are these necessary? In this environment, besides why are these necessary, how do you justify those costs? Because literally all you're doing is making an entry into a computer.
It's a data capture. That's all it is. Yeah. And for data capture, you shouldn't be charging that type of money.
And I mean, who decides on these? Who decides on these fees, James? And how did they get to those numbers? Now, I had a bit of a giggle because going through this list, they're charging a jockey's agent 3,250 Rand. James, what is a jockey? How does a jockey agent cost the NHA anything? That's one thing. Okay. But then they charge a racing manager 3,260 Rand. So obviously the racing manager is more important than the jockey agent, type of situation. It's the same type of thing. But there's some crazy things here. If you're in a syndicate, it costs 10,000 Rand to register the syndicate.
Yeah.
Now, people joining or resigning or anything like that, if you have 3 people simultaneously coming into the syndicate or leaving or a mixture of the two, it costs you 9,560 Rand to do those changes for data capture. I mean, it just absolutely doesn't make sense. Look, I understand they're in in my opinion, they're trying to get blood from a stone. If anything, they should be charging nothing to try and attract people to come in. Not that would attract them. It will just stop people being dissuaded not to join, because it's crazy, man. It really, really is crazy. You join up and it's like $6,000 as an individual. Your entry and your first year's fees. It doesn't make sense. I mean, yeah.
Well, that's the problem that we have. And, in a nutshell, what we've done is over an hour or whatever, we've discussed what the shortfalls of the NHA are. And on the other side, and, I'd like to obviously see the other side of the story, but no one will come and talk to us. No one will come talk to me. If anyone
James,
wants to come...
I would love to have a show with an Arnold Hyde on, or a V. Moodley even. And the V. Moodley would be enjoyable. The Arnold Hyde, I tell you what, I'd come with every freaking weapon at my disposal. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, James, unfortunately, this is the problem with the NHA. They are law unto themselves. They don't communicate with their members. They are absolute. They are rigid. And listen, it's not just me that thinks it. It's not just me that thinks it.
Steve, we know that it's not just you that thinks it, because that's why we have so many positive comments. I mean, I had no negative comments on our show last week, and I had a lot of positive comments, and we have a lot of people watching this thing. And most people don't even make any comment. They just listen, and that's it. But
yeah,
no one said to me, "You're wrong, James. You shouldn't have said that," or "You've got no right to say that," or "This is wrong," or "We'd like to discuss this with you." Surely, if it's important to racing, they would run and say, "Hang on a moment, let's see what the story is here." Now, I watch a lot of races now because I'm a jockey's agent, paying 3,250 rand. Now, what interests me is, what about those agents that work for 2 or 3 or 4 jockeys? Because they're out there. The rules preclude them from running. The rules say they can only work for 1 jockey. Okay, it's the same as saying if you've got your spouse trains a horse that's running in a race, you can't ride someone else's horse. That rule's gone by the wayside. All these things change. Now, just going back to where I was, I watch a couple of races during the week. I watch a lot of racing during the week. I saw some of the worst interference I've ever seen at the Vaal on the inside track on Thursday. I mean, these guys just come across, they come and do everyone. No one ever has any consideration for anyone else. If you're drawn on the outside, you can just go across. You look and then go, okay? And then I saw a race on Wednesday at Scottsville where, I must tell you, if I'd been a stipendiary steward, I would have had the 11 jockeys in the race and asked them what their instructions were and what the hell they thought they were doing. Because I can tell you, the one race, it looked like there was only one horse that wanted to win the race. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. But no one says a word. And if you say that to them, they say, "Oh, you're just a conspiracy artist and this and that and the other." I've got 2 eyes. I've read racing all my life. I can see. You can't be that stupid not to see these things. So where was it? No one will do anything about it, Steve. And this is the problem. And that's why I'm quite comfortable doing a show like this, because a lot of people will listen, and eventually there will be people talking to other people who hopefully can make a difference. Hopefully this will be the start of making a difference. We made a difference in lots of areas, but this is an area that is septic. I'm sorry to say, that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree, James.
Steve, I don't know if there's anything more that you'd like to say. And what I'd like to ask you in finishing this, if they said to you, "Steve, you tell us what you think should happen with the NHA," what in a couple of minutes would you do to fix the NHA?
James, the first thing that I think the crucial thing about the NHA is it really has to be an independent organization. And to me, the situation that it finds itself now, reliant on the operators funding it, is really not the solution. And this might not be the most popular opinion that's ever going to get out there, but in my opinion, there's only 2 ways that the NHA can get funded properly. And the first one is that levy that always used to go to the operator needs to go to the NHA. There has to be some type of government involvement in it. And unfortunately, like everything else in racing, owners are going to have to contribute more. Now, in my opinion, James, they don't have to contribute more as an additional expense. I mean, I really have the opinion that if the NHA want to regulate properly, they should have a situation where they have a proper department, and all fees, I'm talking training fees, vet fees, all those type of things, should be paid through this department. So James Goodman, trainer, has his own little setup there that the NHA basically manages for him. All your owners pay the NHA, and the NHA pay you, and they take a cut of that.
It's a Weatherby system. That's what it is.
Whatever it is, but it makes so much sense, James, because all of a sudden, and another thing, what I would also, if I was in charge, as part of that, and give people time, because it's not something that you can just implement overnight. If Steve Reed is an owner and he owns one horse, I must put down a deposit for my horse equal to 1 month, which equates to paying up front and a month's keep. In other words, if it's 10 grand a month from the 1st of July, the 1st of August, the start of the year, I must have a double payment for my trainer in place.
Yeah.
If you understand. So if you got 20 horses and it's 200 grand, you're going to have to fork out 400 grand. Now, I can hear the squealing from here. But let me tell you what, when it comes to the sales, the guys have got no qualms putting their head down and putting 3, 4, 500,000, $1 million, 2 million and buying a horse.
Yes.
Why can't they look after the game in that way? And I'm obviously an owner, or was an owner, or I'm unofficially an owner, let's put it that way. I would be quite prepared to do that. But I have discussed this with people before. There's absolutely no appetite for it. Appetite for it.
Well, I'll tell you why there's no appetite for it. There's no appetite for it for two reasons. One, the NHA is not all powerful and can't put something like this into play. And two, they can't do that because there's so many maneuvers between trainers and owners and this and that and the other, and people doing backhanded things and things that are contrary to the rules, that no one will accept that this is the way to go. But it is the way to go. It is absolutely the right way. And I don't know if I'm living in cloud cuckoo land, but that's what I see. I know when I spoke to all the trainers about Weatherby style payment schemes where they wouldn't have a problem, a lot of the trainers don't want to do it. Why don't they want to do it? You know why they don't want to do it? Because they're not running a proper business. That's all.
James, just from a control point of view, if you think about it, I mean, we've all heard about these guys and they get into trouble for doing deals and all those funny things. But the bottom line, if James Goodman is the trainer and your training fee is 10K a month,
correct,
I've got to pay it. And if I'm not paying it, it means the horse isn't getting looked after. It starts identifying the problem areas. So we don't have the situation that horses are found in terrible conditions because allegedly owners haven't been paying, like we did recently with a Vaal trainer.
Yeah.
It just things like vet fees, James. All of a sudden, you're not going to have guys arriving in gold-plated Rolls-Royce at a training center and charging you, the traveling fees that they do.
No, they arrive at Land Cruisers. They only have Land Cruisers.
But they should be gold-plated Rolls Royces with a charge you, James.
You can argue. What I argued with Crocky Dupree and the Vets Forever about their fees, but they turn around and they say, "Well, we did 7 years, and we like doctors, and we've done our bit, and we're entitled to charge, and we actually have a council that actually sets down the fees." They don't mention that the council is run by themselves anyway. Okay. So when you get into vets, it's a whole different ballgame. I don't think we should be talking about them now because I'd love to have a vet on here and discuss things with them.
But here's the thing, James, and regardless of what anyone says, part of the reason why vets' fees are so high is because of the bad debt that's out there. If it's controlled by the NHA, that bad debt should be way less than what it is at the moment. I mean, you hear horror stories. I mean, I've often spoken to vets. I mean, not lately, but they'll tell you stories about trainers that owe them X, Y, and Z, and your hair stands up at the back of your head. But the solution isn't to milk the goose that's laying the golden egg. That owner that is paying his fees. The solution is to sort out the problem, which is not happening.
Exactly. And the point is that everyone would be more comfortable once the thing is running and being run properly, and everyone believes that they're getting a fair crack, whether the vets are getting paid, whether the owners are paying their bills, whether the trainers are getting enough money in to feed their horses. All those things make for good racing. And when you think of it, Singapore, they have that type of system. They have it in Hong Kong. They have it in all these places that run their racing properly. We don't. And we could. It's not difficult, Steve, to set up an operation whereby every time a horse is registered, the guy pays a fee of 10 grand, which is his 1 month's fee in advance, or 20 grand. That's what he pays. to register the horse instead of paying 1,500 rand that goes straight down the tube into some bottomless pit that the NHA have to pay all their executives and fines. And I mean, what they pay, it's not even possible to believe that you can spend 50 million rand a year on running racing, and you pay the fees that you pay to some of those stipendiary stewards and that. These guys aren't getting great wages. They're really, if you want to put a man in charge of the business that's as big as racing, you got to have him way above board, because the fee that he gets makes it not worth his while to look at any other way of making income. And we saw it in Durban. We've seen it everywhere, you know. They turn a blind eye. As you said, Jock Sproul, you mentioned him. I mean, I remember when I was a young trainer, both Jock Sproul, when I arrived in Durban, 1977, he called me into his office. He said, I want to see you at Greyville at my office. He said to me, this is how we do things here. I don't want any nonsense from you. I said, I'm not here to cause any nonsense. I'm here to try and win some races. He says, that's all I want to hear from you, and look after your horses properly. Don't want to see you again. I never saw or spoke to Jock Sproul again in my racing career. Walter Lewis caught me for a horse one day that he thought I was giving a run to, which I wasn't, but I think the jockey was. And he said to me, if a horse like that runs and is ridden like that again, I'm going to have you guys in. And that's it. And this is a warning. Don't put me in a position. I never got in his path again. He was a wonderful, wonderful stipendiary steward. I mean, those guys were fantastic. And Eddie McGraw's father was even better. Frank McGraw. Frank McGraw was the best of the lot. He was a fantastic people's person. So,
James, you know, I think we speak in the same language, and I hope, and you know, I hope that someone like V. Moodley does listen to this type of thing and just give it some type of consideration. You know, I don't know. You know, this us and them scenario and this.
It should stop. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's good.
It's no good.
I mean, at the end of the day, James, racing is a family. It really, really is. Yeah. If you think about it, and particularly today, James, if you can't have fun racing, well, then you're not going to be in it. And let me tell you what, you're not going to be making money with these stakes. That is for sure.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're blessed with one of those great, I mean, even, let's be frank, I mean, the July is $1.5 million this year. Do me a favor, James. I mean, come on.
These great ones are 425,000 or 450,000. Yeah. You know, that doesn't pay a year's training fees just about. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really think that we've said all we need to say, and I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything that you'd like to finish with?
James, you know, what I would like to say is, listen, we've bitched and moaned a lot, but the one thing I would like to put out there is I'm passionate about racing. I want racing to continue. I want my grandkids to, I don't have a grandkid at this stage, but I want my grandchildren to come with me and watch racing. So I'm not an anarchist. I'm not someone that wants racing to collapse. I want it to work. But you know what? I'm really, really concerned that racing is in the hands of people who really don't have the answers. And I'm not trying to get the answers either. And I'll leave you on that happy note.
Are they trying to get it to work? That's the point. You say you want it to work. The information that we've shared over the last last week, which is over an hour show, it's not derogatory. It's information that is out there that everyone can see, and all we're doing is we're trying to give solutions.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
James,
that.
Yeah, unfortunately, you asked me the question, are they trying to get the answers? In my opinion, they're not. In my opinion, they want the old boys club to continue. There is no new blood coming in, James. They're not looking for new ideas out there. They're not even going to their members. I mean, we've got captains of industries who are owners. I mean, we've got proper owners in racing. Why are they not involving them? Why are they not asking for help? I mean, I just don't get it. But James, hopefully things do improve. As I say, I'd like to be watching racing until my dying day, but I wouldn't like to be watching racing like it is now and the way it is controlled, this closed shop. And let's hope things change.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thanks for the opportunity, James.
thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And it's wonderful to be able to speak to someone that's prepared to say it as it is. And that's what we're here for. We are trying to make give advice. Look, my cat's arrived. He says, I've had enough now. Trying to give advice to the people that run the industry. They think that we haven't got experience. We've got many, many more years of experience than most of you people out there. I've spent my whole life in this industry doing nothing but good for it. I can tell you that all I've ever tried to do is good for this industry. And no one really cares about what I've got to say, what Steve Reed's got to say, what other people have got to say, who really have things to help. As far as the devil is concerned, I see he says, hey, old man, I'll see you soon. Not that soon, my friend, the devil, because you know what? All I can tell you, only the good die young. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Steve, once again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you on the other side. Remember, Turfentine tomorrow and Greyville on Sunday. I'll be doing previews. And thank you for all your messages. For saying problem racing close shop with information. Yeah, you're right. Well, V's post, you know, everything that you've said there are questions we'd love to ask. You know, these questions we really would like to ask, but who do we ask them to? No one's going to tell us the answer. Only we have the answers. And if we don't have the answer, my cat certainly doesn't have the answer. Kitty, look at them. There you are. So have a great weekend. And thank you all for joining us. All the very best.